Well, thank you very much. Uh, Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Kenneth. And thank you all for coming. It's very heartwarming for me to see so many people here tonight who are currently part of our team or at one time or another have been part of our team. And it's really gratifying to me to sort of be, as Peter would sort of be the cheerleader for the team. So I'd like to recognize all of you who've really contributed so much to some of the things that I'm going to show tonight. So would you all stand up? Our past and current team. Thank you. Thank you. I wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for all of you, and I am truly grateful. I'm not going to show you everything we've done, but because I'd like to do that, but I'm going to go back a ways to the first building, which I did on Fire Island on the beach, which was built in 9 days for $9,000. It is made out of tongue-and-grooved cedar, which was cut in Michigan, and the workmen came by truck and then by boat over to Fire Island, and we slept on the beach for 9 days and built this house. As a result, it got a little bit of publicity, and my parents said, well, if you can do a house for $9,000, I guess you can do a house for us. Which subsequently I did. The house was sold by the original owners to Mel Brooks and Ann Bancroft, who paid $90,000 for the house. And I'm sure in one of the recent storms it's been washed away. The first office was this room where we all sat around a table in the center and sort of talked to one another and worked together. And everyone sort of had their T-square, and we got light from a reflection off the Lever House across the street. And as we got a little bit more work, we moved to 57th Street, where we still sort of communicated with one another in this space, and now we're on 10th Avenue in space at 37th Street. I keep pressing the wrong buttons. But here too, we all sort of walk around and talk with one another, and you can see these photographs are old because we still had movable T-squares. And as a result of that house in Fire Island, I got to do a house in Darien, Connecticut, on the water, overlooking Long Island Sound, a great site. And the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who asked me to do the house, said that there had been a house designed on this site, and they found it was so expensive that they sold us the land quite inexpensively. And I said, well, let me see the drawings for the house that was previously designed there. And it was a sprawling one-level house. And as you can see, the site is all rock. And so the only way to build there is to build vertically with dining on the lower level, living on the middle level. And you sort of enter through a closed space and then open into the living space, which looks out to the water. And somewhat later, people asked if they could buy the plans for the house in Darien. I said, well, no, I mean, I'm not interested in selling plans, that's not what we do. So they said, okay, well then design a house for us like the house in Darien. But their site, as you can see in section, is very steeply sloping down to the water. So you enter at the top level across a bridge onto the roof, which looks out to Lake Michigan, and then from there you descend down into the living spaces where light comes through the center of the house, separating the private space from the public space, or the bedroom space from the living space, and then it looks out to the water, and the stair takes you down through the woods onto the beach below. Of course, these photographs were taken, as most of us do, relatively soon after the house was finished, and now all the trees have grown up, and I'm sure if they don't cut them down, they'll lose their view to Lake Michigan. We were asked to do a competition in Germany for the museum for decorative arts. And as you can see, there's a house from the age of Goethe and Schenkel that was on the site, and this was supposed to be attached to it. So the building, in a sense, wraps around the existing Villa Metzler, and there's a bridge connection to it. And the bridge takes you from the new museum into the old decorative arts museum. And it opens out to a park adjacent to it. And on the right, where you see the pergola, is a restaurant. And they make their own pastries. And as it turned out, after the building was finished, all the expectant mothers would come and meet around 4 o'clock in the afternoon and sort of share their stories and their expectations. Then after they delivered the baby, they would come back and sort of have tea and talk with one another. They rarely went into the museum, which you see here, which you go by ramp from one level to another and look out to the city beyond. We've always done houses and always enjoyed doing houses. This is in New Jersey on an open field with a house that sort of looks out to the field and connects to the garage. The photographer who went out there, we had scheduled a date and it was terrible weather. I said, no, don't go out. You have to photograph in the sun. You have to see what it looks like with light. And he went out there and took this photograph, and I said, wow, he's really a good photographer. And the house is closed on one side, open to the field, and as you can see, the living space is in the glazed drum of the building. We did a museum in Barcelona, in a really run-down area of the city. It's a museum for contemporary art and opens out to a plaza space in front of the building. And after the building was finished, the plaza slopes slightly, and there's a ramp that takes you up slightly to the main entrance. And every kid in Barcelona that had a skateboard used to come and skateboard in the plaza. And people elderly people would come and sit around, and the kids would skate. And then they saw that there were ramps inside, and they thought, oh my God, if it's good skating outside, imagine what we could do on those ramps. That was short-lived, fortunately, and the museum continues to have changing exhibition. It owns very little, and this was a space that I thought would be kind of little sculpture gallery. Of course, when it opened, they had paintings on the wall. So you can never predict, how spaces are going to be used in most museum buildings. Although the Getty, which you see here, certainly was predictable. And it consists of 7 different entities, and you enter at the bottom and leave your car at the foot of the hill and take a tram up to the plaza at the top of the hill. And the tram, which takes you up, you can walk, but very few people do. And when you get to the top of the hill, you get off, and there's an arrival plaza, and you can figure out where you want to go first, whether you want to go to the museum, which is the main destination, up the stairs and into the galleries, or whether you want to go to the theater, the auditorium, or the food service building, or to the gardens. And you come into the rotunda of the museum, and that opens out to a courtyard. And around the courtyard is a cluster of buildings clad in travertine. It just so happens, after I was selected as architect for the Getty, they wrote into law that it couldn't be white. I didn't take that personally, but there's a little bit of whiteness about it in spaces that you don't see from the neighbors. So the auditorium, which you see here, has white enamel panels, and you can go out, you can go into the auditorium space, see what's going on, or go to the Center for the History of Art and Humanities, a place for scholars, which has the extraordinary library. And since the building could only be 3 stories high, we also went down 3 stories. So here in the library, light comes through the center of the building into spaces which are below ground. And you can go from one building to another undercover, or step out onto terraces from the food service building, and see what's around it. I was asked by some people to do a house in Naples, Florida, and they came to me and they said, we bought this site in a gated community. I said, oh, that sounds like trouble. And I said, are there any restrictions that come with building in this gated community? And they said, oh, no, I told them that you were going to be the architect. It's fine, you can do, whatever you think is appropriate for our needs and for the site. And I read in the literature of the building restrictions that the building had to have a hip roof. So I said, I don't think I'm the right architect for you. I don't know how to do, a hip roof building. Maybe someone else should do it. So they said, oh, no, it's okay. You'll figure it out. So I said, okay. We'll do a hip roof building. And I took the model down and I showed it to them. No, you don't understand what we mean. It's supposed to do that. I said, well, the regulations didn't say that. It just said it had to be 1 in 12. So after that, they changed the regulations. It continues to amaze me how, restrictions are only made to be interpreted. In Islip, Long Island, we were asked to do a federal courthouse on an open site, and it's 32 courts, and so it seemed to me they said, it has to look like a courthouse. I said, what does that mean? Look like a, well, you put some columns and pediments on it or something, make it. And I said, okay, well, we'll put a rotunda where you come into a public space and then into the atrium and then go to the courts. And so all of the courts have a corridor in front of them, and you can stand there while you're waiting to be summoned in and look out to Long Island Sound. On Perry Street, we were asked to do 2 residential buildings with 1 apartment on each floor. So the buildings basically are the shape of the site and look out to the Hudson River. And each apartment is a single floor with views and light and a terrace where you can step out and see what the weather's like in the morning. And after those 2 were completed, I said to the people, the developers of those 2 buildings, you ought to buy that little brick building next door because, obviously with these buildings, that's going to increase in value. Well, they didn't listen to me, and someone else came, and we did a building, the 3rd building, which is the one on the left on Charles Street. And so we have these 3 buildings together downtown. And for me, it's very rewarding because most of the time we're asked to do a singular building. But having 3 together create a place, and I like to think of it as sort of a gateway from the village to the water. We were asked to take part in a competition with Peter Eisman and some other people. I don't remember who they were. For a church in Rome to commemorate the year 2000. So the church is designed and built, as you can see, with 3 shells which then emit light into the main body of the church. When I was chosen as architect, I got a call from the Vatican and said, would you like to present the design of the church to the Pope? And I said, oh, it would be an honor. And so we set a date. I took the model, I went to Rome, and the model sat in the corner of the large room, and there was no light. And I said, to the Swiss guards, can we get some light in here so that, when the Pope comes, I can explain to him what it's all about. And they disappeared, and I could see on a television monitor, the Wednesday Mass was coming to an end, and finally the Pope came in, and the television cameras came in, and there was light. So it made me a believer. And as you can see, you come into the church and it's filled with light, and when you're in there, you can't help but look up and look out and think about things outside of yourself and your problems and see the way the light changes as you experience the building. We were asked to do a museum in Germany on a hilltop, and this was sort of the first model that I made, because there was not really a program. It was for Hans Arp and Sophie Tauber Arp, and the man sponsoring it then couldn't get permission to build there, but so he bought another site above the railroad station, which you see on the bottom left of the screen in Rolandseck. And he said, well, we're going to build on the top of the hill, but we haven't figured out a way to get there. So the only way to get there is to go into the railroad station, go downstairs through a tunnel, up an elevator, which you see here, across a bridge, and then into the museum. And from the museum, you can stand and look out over the Rhine River. And the experience of seeing the art, seeing light, and seeing this unique setting is all part of the museum experience. It's not a museum you sort of stop into for an hour or so, because it takes you 20 minutes to get from the bottom of the hill to the top. But that's all part of the experience of being there. And at Cornell University, we designed a laboratory building on a site that was one of the practice football fields. So, as you know, sports take precedent over anything else in most universities, and there was a lot of opposition to taking away a sports field for a lab building. In Hamburg, Germany, we did a building for a coffee company overlooking the city and the harbor. And in China, in Shenzhen, we did a clubhouse. And it's sort of a place for members, and I think they said, oh, they'll have as many as 1,000 members who pay some exorbitant price to be a member of this club. And it contains meeting rooms, dining rooms, entertainment facilities, a swimming pool, and in the first day, their membership was filled, and people were very proud to be able to say they're a member of this club. I've been there a number of times, and it's a nice building, but I wouldn't pay the membership fee that it costs to be there. But fortunately, I don't have to. We did. The people who made the pure white concrete for the church, they invented this concrete. I thought we'd make it out of plaster, and they said, no, we're going to do it out of precast concrete, and we're going to make it a pure white concrete that actually was used by Pierluigi Nervi for the sports stadium in Rome. And so they asked me to design their headquarters building using that concrete. And it's a place where they have meetings and they have events, and their offices are located. And it's on a highway that goes by, and you can see it on your way from Bergamo to Milan. A lot of work in the past has been in Italy, and these are apartments in Jesolo, which is across the water from Venice. The apartments are sort of built around a swimming pool as well as looking out to the beach, and everyone has a balcony with a view in one direction or another. And in all of our work for a good period of time was in Europe, such as this building, office building in Prague, which we did one building many, many years ago, and then they asked us to come back and do another building on the same site for offices that would be occupied by different companies in Prague. And a small house in Luxembourg, which is on a small site right on the street. Actually, when I went there for the first time, I thought, geez, how are we going to do something on this site? You know, it's not the greatest site I've ever seen, but fortunately, it's sloping so that the living spaces look out onto a green area, which is not on the street, but sort of rises up, as you can see, from the street to a park that's behind it. In Newark, New Jersey, we're currently working on a project called Teachers Housing, which occupies infill sites, which, as you can see here, were mainly parking lots in the heart of downtown Newark. So it's a kind of infill project, some of which is just being completed currently. and it creates a relationship in scale between buildings that are there, will continue to be there, and new buildings which will be part of the downtown area. It's right across from City Hall in Newark, and an area that certainly will change over the next number of years. And this is a hotel in Korea, also on the beach. When I look back, I think how fortunate we've been to have so many projects on the water, where you look out to the water, where the water view becomes a priority and direction, and then you have sort of the ability to sort of have open space and closed space in relation to the site and the water. And nearing completion is this residential building in the heart of Tel Aviv on the corner of Rothschild Boulevard and Allenby Street. And it's nearing completion, and as you can see, looks out to the city that's all around it. And most recently, we're working in Bogota, in Colombia, with 2 residential buildings, which will soon start construction. We went to Bogota recently, and it's a thriving, developing city with the same problem that almost every city that we go to these days has, and that is traffic. Wherever you go, traffic is a problem, as well as in Taiwan, where we're doing 2 towers that will soon be completed. And of course, in Mexico City, which is a city which is infamous for the traffic, and these buildings are located right in the heart of the downtown area. And you can see in section the way light comes into the center of the building, and the building opens up so that it receives light in addition to the perimeter in the center as well. And most recently, we're doing this project in Miami, Miami, Florida. The old building which you see there is being kept. We're building kind of over and around it, and the apartments look out to the water, and you can see the sea. And I guess, you know, in my old age, when that comes about, I'll move to Miami and have one of these apartments by the sea, and think about, you know, how cold it is in New York City. So with that, I want to thank you very much for coming, and it's a pleasure to be with you.